I have a facility to get rid of negatives very quickly. And if something hurts me, I get rid of it.
When Vince McMahon lost it, the cameras rolled as the most powerful man in wrestling broke down completely. For 30 years, Vince McMahon controlled everything. He built WWE from a regional promotion into a global empire worth billions of pounds. He created larger-than-life characters. He scripted impossible drama. He turned athletes into superstars and superstars into legends. Every move was calculated. Every word was planned. Every emotion was manufactured for maximum impact. Wrestling is fake. Everyone knows that. But Vince McMahon made people forget. He blurred the line between script and reality so completely that audiences could not tell where the performance ended and the truth began. He was the puppet master, the architect, the ultimate authority. But even the greatest empires crack under pressure. Yet even the strongest masks eventually slip. And when they do, the truth comes rushing out. In 2020, a documentary crew sat down with Vince for The Undertaker, The Last Ride. They asked him a simple question, a question that should have been easy. They wanted to know what Mark Calloway meant to him personally. Mark Calloway is The Undertaker, the dead man, the phenom. For 3 decades, they built a legacy together, through ups and downs, through success and scandal, through every era of WWE history. The question was not complicated. It was not a trap. It was just honest. Vince started to answer. Then something happened. His face changed. The corporate mask began to crack. His eyes filled with emotion. Words failed him completely. He could not speak. He waved frantically at the camera crew. He managed one word, cut. The billionaire chairman who had survived federal trials, business wars, performer deaths, and public scandals could not talk about a friend without falling apart. The man who built his empire on emotional manipulation could not control his own emotions. This is where the story ends. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back. Back to the beginning of the cracks. Back to 5 moments when control slipped through Vince's fingers. When violence erupted in real time. When tragedy struck without warning. When anger boiled over on camera. When the human body broke down under pressure. These are the moments the script failed. These are the moments WWE became real. If you are hooked already, show this video some love and use the hype feature to give hype to this video right now. Here is what happened. In 1997, Vince orchestrated the most controversial betrayal in wrestling history and got knocked unconscious in a locker room for it. In 1999, Owen Hart fell to his death during a live pay-per-view, and Vince made the decision to keep the show running. In 2001, a respected journalist questioned Vince's legitimacy and nearly got punched on live television. In 2005, Vince tore both quadriceps tendons entering the ring and refused to stop giving orders while sitting helplessly on the mat. And in 2020, the mask finally shattered completely. These moments reveal the real Vince McMahon, not the character, not the persona, the man underneath. And that man is complicated, ruthless, obsessed with control, willing to sacrifice anything and anyone for the empire, including himself. Let us start where the hate truly began. November 1997, Montreal, Canada. In the Molson Center, Survivor Series. Bret Hart was the WWE champion. He was also leaving. His contract was ending, and he had signed with World Championship Wrestling, the rival promotion. Vince was terrified, not of losing Bret. He could replace wrestlers. What terrified him was the image of Bret Hart appearing on a competing television network holding the WWE Championship belt. That visual could destroy credibility. That visual could kill business. So Vince made a plan that violated every unwritten rule in professional wrestling, a plan that broke the sacred trust between promoter and performer. The match was scheduled, Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels. The agreement was clear. Bret would not lose the title in Canada, not in his home country, not in front of his people. He would drop the belt later, somewhere else, and under different circumstances. Everyone understood. Everyone agreed, or so Bret thought. But Vince had other plans. He instructed referee Earl Hebner to call for the bell when Shawn Michaels locked Bret in the sharpshooter submission hold. Bret never submitted. Bret never tapped out. Bret never gave up. The bell rang anyway. The timekeeper was in on it. Shawn was in on it. The match ended. Shawn Michaels walked away with the WWE Championship. Bret stood in the ring, stunned and furious. This was not a storyline. This was not a work. This was genuine betrayal. The crowd sensed it immediately. Something was wrong. Bret knew it. He looked at Vince at ringside. He spat directly on him from the ring. Saliva landed on the boss's face. Then Bret destroyed everything within reach. He smashed television monitors. He kicked equipment. He traced letters in the air with his finger. 3 letters. WCW. A message to everyone watching. Then he stormed backstage to the visitors' locker room. Vince could have left it there. He could have hidden backstage. He could have sent apologies later. But Vince McMahon does not hide. terrified. He followed Brett to the locker room. He brought senior officials with him. Gerald Briscoe came. Sergeant Slaughter came. They walked into a room full of angry wrestlers. Rick Rude was there. The Undertaker was there. Owen Hart, Brett's brother, was there. Shawn Michaels arrived shortly after, looking distraught. Brett had just finished showering. He was still wet, still processing what happened, still furious. When Vince entered, Brett warned him, "Get out, leave now. This is not the time." Vince refused. He wanted to stand his ground. He wanted to prove he was not afraid of his own wrestlers. He wanted to demonstrate executive courage. It was a mistake. Brett grabbed Vince. They locked up like a wrestling match. Then Brett delivered a punch. A perfect uppercut. The kind of punch that ends fights. The kind Mike Tyson would admire. It connected flush with Vince's jaw. Vince went down hard. His eyes rolled back. He was completely unconscious. The chairman of the company, the billionaire boss, lay flat on the locker room floor. Everyone stood around staring. The Undertaker watched. Shawn Michaels watched. No one knew what to do. No one moved to help. Vince stayed unconscious for approximately 5 minutes. When he finally woke up, he had a black eye forming. Brett had broken his hand on the punch. Later, Brett said it was one of the sweetest moments of his career. 14 years of loyalty, 14 years of service. One punch made it all feel worth it. But here is where Vince's genius showed through. He did not hide the fallout. He did not pretend it never happened. Instead, he appeared on television with the black eye visible for everyone to see. He used the real hatred fans felt, the legitimate anger, the genuine betrayal. He turned it into the Mr. McMahon character, the evil boss, the corporate villain, the ruthless billionaire everyone loved to hate. The character was built on reality. Fans hated Vince because he actually screwed Bret Hart. That was not fiction. That was fact, and Vince weaponized it. He turned the worst moment of his professional life into the biggest character of the Attitude Era. He learned a crucial lesson that night. Real emotion sells better than any script, but a real anger is more powerful than any storyline. And he would use that lesson again and again, even when the cost became unthinkable. May 1999, Kansas City, Missouri, the Kemper Arena. Over the Edge pay-per-view. Owen Hart was scheduled to perform that night, not as himself, but as the Blue Blazer, a comedic superhero character. The gimmick was meant to be funny, a parody of the serious, dramatic entrances other wrestlers used. Owen would descend from the arena ceiling on a harness, pretending to be a superhero. It was supposed to get laughs, but someone decided the entrance needed to be quicker, more impressive. They wanted a quick release mechanism on the harness. A rigging expert reportedly warned against this. The expert said it was dangerous. The warning was ignored or dismissed. The show had to go on. The spectacle mattered more than caution. During the descent, something went catastrophically wrong. While a pre-recorded video package played for the television audience, Owen was being lowered from the rafters. The quick release mechanism triggered prematurely. The harness opened. Owen fell. He dropped approximately 90 feet through the air. He struck the top rope of the ring. Then he landed inside the squared circle. The television audience did not see it happen. They were watching a video package, but the thousands of people inside the arena saw everything. They witnessed a man fall to his death in real time. The commentary team knew immediately something was terribly wrong. Jim Ross, the voice of WWE, came on the broadcast. His tone changed completely. He said, "This is not part of the show. This is not a storyline. This is a real situation." The shift from entertainment to tragedy was instant and jarring. Backstage, the reaction was chaos, complete confusion, hysteria. People were crying. People were screaming. No one knew what to do. Paramedics rushed to the ring. CPR was administered, but it was too late. Owen was gone. Witnesses saw Vince backstage with tears streaming down his face. He looked heartbroken. He looked shattered. He could barely speak. For those few moments, he was just a man grieving the loss of a performer he knew personally. But those moments did not last long. Vince had a decision to make, the hardest decision of his career. The show was live. Thousands of people were in the arena. Millions more were watching on pay-per-view around the world. The event still had matches scheduled. Wrestlers were waiting in the back. Sherry, what should happen next? Vince decided the show would continue. His reasoning was calculated. The live audience had not fully witnessed the horror of the fall due to a temporary blackout. Stopping the show might create more chaos, might cause panic, might make things worse. Vince later said that if it were him who had fallen, if it were him who had hit the mat, he would want the show to go on. He believed continuing was the right decision, but the decision haunts his legacy to this day. Wrestlers were forced to perform in the ring where their colleague had just died. Jeff Jarrett, one of Owen's closest friends, had to go out immediately after and deliver a wrestling promo. He had to pretend to be in character. He had to wrestle a match. The commentators had to announce Owen's death on live television. Jim Ross had to tell the world that Owen Hart was gone. The trauma was real. The pain was unbearable. The Hart family never forgave Vince. Owen's widow, Martha, filed a wrongful death lawsuit. The case was settled for £18 million. The criticism never stopped. People said Vince valued profit over safety, that he put the product above human life, that the show should have been stopped immediately out of respect and decency. This was the darkest moment, the The moment when the line between entertainment and tragedy did not just blur, it disappeared completely. This was the moment people questioned whether Vince McMahon had a soul, and for many the answer was a resounding no. The empire was built on pressure and spectacle, and sometimes that pressure crushed people. Owen Hart paid the ultimate price. But Vince was not just ruthless with his performers. He was equally ruthless with critics, and he was about to prove it on national television. March 2001, HBO Studios. Vince McMahon sat across from Bob Costas for the interview program On the Record. Costas was a respected sports journalist, an intellectual, a member of the media elite. Vince was there to promote the XFL, his new professional football league. The interview was supposed to be a platform for promotion. It turned into a confrontation. Costas questioned everything: the quality of WWE programming, the legitimacy of the XFL as a serious sports venture, the wisdom of NBC's partnership with McMahon. His tone was measured but cutting. To Vince, it sounded condescending. It sounded pompous. It sounded like someone looking down on him. Then Costas showed clips. Controversial WWE storylines featuring female performers. Moments designed to make wrestling look cheap and low rent. Vince's expression changed. The corporate polish evaporated. The mask started slipping. Vince leaned forward aggressively. He invaded Costas's personal space. He jabbed his finger at the journalist. He said, "Do not make me raise my voice here. You want to play that way? Boy, I can play, okay?" The word boy was not scripted. The finger jab was not planned. The aggression was completely authentic. This was real anger bubbling to the surface. Vince later admitted he wanted to beat Costas up. He said he came very close. The only thing that stopped him was Costas's smaller physical stature. Vince did not want to be seen hitting a smaller man. Bob Costas noticed the intensity. In a follow-up interview in 2002, Costas said he did not feel physically threatened in the sense that he expected to be struck, but he saw something in Vince's eyes. He recognized it as genuine rage, a clash of wills, a battle for dominance happening in real time on camera. This moment exposed a critical weakness. Vince could not tolerate intellectual criticism. When someone questioned his legitimacy with words and reason, his instinct was to resort to physical dominance. Words were not enough. Debate was not enough. He wanted to fight. He wanted to prove his power through force. The insecurity showed through completely, but physical dominance has its limits. The human body can only take so much. Even Vince would learn this lesson the hard way. January 2005, the Royal Rumble, Fresno, California. The finish was supposed to be clean and simple. Batista would eliminate John Cena. Batista would win the Royal Rumble. He would headline WrestleMania. The script was written. Everyone knew their roles. But professional wrestling is performed live, and live television does not care about scripts. Near the end of the match, Batista attempted to execute a powerbomb on Cena near the ropes. The ring cables were slick with sweat from 30 men competing for nearly an hour. Both wrestlers lost their balance. They tumbled over the top rope together. Both hit the floor at exactly the same time. A double elimination, complete chaos. The referees panicked. The Raw brand referees declared Batista the winner. The SmackDown brand referees declared Cena the winner. The two groups argued. The crowd was confused. This was not supposed to happen. And the general managers were supposed to be there to handle unexpected situations, Eric Bischoff and Teddy Long, but both had left the arena early. No authority figures remained. No one could fix the problem. The show was falling apart on live television. Vince decided to fix it himself. He stormed out from backstage in full Mr. McMahon character mode, furious, aggressive, moving at full speed. He needed to take control. He needed to restore order. He charged toward the ring with complete determination. He attempted to slide under the bottom rope the way wrestlers do, but his legs impacted the ring apron at an awkward, high-velocity angle. The force of the impact combined with the eccentric load caused both quadriceps tendons to rupture simultaneously. Both legs. Vince entered the ring and tried to stand. He collapsed instantly. His legs would not support him. He fell to the canvas. But Vince McMahon does not show weakness, not even when his body is catastrophically injured. He sat down cross-legged on the mat like a child, and from that sitting position, he barked orders at the confused referees. He remained completely in character. He projected rage and authority instead of agony. He commanded the match to restart. He stayed seated the entire time, out of yelling instructions while John Cena and Batista stared in stunned disbelief. Medical experts say the pain from a bilateral quadriceps rupture is excruciating. Vince showed nothing. He no-sold the injury completely. This behavior is rooted in a corporate culture that equates physical durability with leadership legitimacy. Showing pain is showing weakness, and Vince McMahon does not show weakness. But it got worse. Backstage, after the cameras stopped rolling, Vince refused medical assistance. He attempted to walk to his vehicle without help. The strain on the remaining intact muscle caused a second tear. He ruptured the tendons again through sheer stubborn refusal to admit he needed help. Later, Vince joked about the incident. He said not too many people can sever both quad tendons at the same time. That takes talent. He turned a medical catastrophe into a badge of honor, a point of pride. He even competed with Triple H, who had suffered a similar similar injury years before. Vince became obsessed with recovering faster, returning to functionality quicker. Even his own body was a rival to be dominated and beat. This moment crystallized everything about Vince McMahon. He could not accept limits, not from his business, not from his competitors, not from his own physical body, not from reality itself. Control was everything. Dominance was everything. Even when pursuing control literally destroyed him, he refused to stop. But there was one thing Vince could not control. One thing even his willpower could not overcome. Time, age, emotion, the weight of a lifetime spent wearing a mask. We return to 2020, The Undertaker, The Last Ride documentary, where Vince had spent 3 decades building an impenetrable persona, the ruthless corporate villain, the billionaire boss who felt nothing, the man who turned every tragedy into profit. For 30 years, he worked alongside Mark Calloway. They built a legacy together. The Undertaker became the most loyal performer in WWE history. He stayed through every era, every crisis, every change. Through the Monday Night Wars, the Attitude Era, the PG era, and beyond. Through thick and thin, Mark Calloway remained. The documentary crew asked Vince to describe their relationship. What does Mark Calloway mean to you personally? A simple question, an honest question, a question about friendship and loyalty and 3 decades of partnership. Vince tried to answer. His face tightened. Emotion flooded in. His eyes began to fill with tears. The words caught in his throat. He could not speak. He physically could not form the words. He waved desperately at the camera crew. He managed to say one thing: cut, stop filming. The interview was over. The man who survived federal steroid trials in the 1990s could not talk about a friend. The man who continued a show after a performer died could not express gratitude. The man who got knocked unconscious and turned it into a character could not maintain composure during a simple question. The mask failed completely. This was not a work. This was not a storyline. This was the persona crumbling under its own weight. For decades, Vince had imprisoned himself inside the Mr. McMahon character. The character protected him. It allowed him to make ruthless decisions. It justified prioritizing business over people. It had created distance between the man and the empire. But the character also became a prison, and prisons eventually break you. The breakdown went viral immediately. Social media turned it into a meme. Young people on TikTok and Twitter repurposed the footage. They used it to represent a father struggling to describe the past to his children. The context changed, but the emotion remained authentic. Vince McMahon, the most powerful figure in wrestling history, could not hold himself together. Vince showed humanity in other ways too. The documentary featured his relationship with Connor Michalik, a young fan battling pediatric cancer. Connor the Crusher. The footage showed genuine affection, real connection. After Connor's death, the McMahon family created Connor's Cure to fund pediatric cancer research. And Stephanie McMahon gave tearful public tributes. The grief was real. The love was real. But caring does not erase ruthlessness. Emotion does not undo past decisions. It does not bring Owen Hart back. It does not undo the screw job. It does not heal the injuries. It simply proves that Vince McMahon is human. And humans are complicated, capable of both great compassion and terrible cruelty, often simultaneously. The legacy of these 5 moments is a wrestling industry that now chases authenticity above all else. Modern audiences are smart. They understand the business. They know the scripts. They know the outcomes are predetermined. But they still desperately want the moments when the script fails, when real emotion breaks through, when the mask slips. Vince McMahon taught them to crave that feeling. He built an empire on fiction. But fiction only works when reality crashes through occasionally. The Montreal screwjob worked as a storyline because the betrayal was real. The Attitude Era succeeded because fans genuinely hated Vince for what he did. The tragedy of Owen Hart resonated because the grief was authentic. The Bob Costas interview became legendary because the rage was unscripted. The quad injury became iconic because the pain was genuine. The Last Ride breakdown went viral because the love was real. Vince McMahon lost control 5 times on camera. 5 times the audience saw the man behind the mask. 5 times WWE stopped being entertainment and became real. And 5 times Vince proved that control is ultimately an illusion. You can script stories, you can plan finishes, you can build empires, but you cannot script reality. Reality does not follow your plans. Reality does not care about your empire. The modern wrestling landscape exists in the shadow of these moments. Fans are smarter than ever before. They understand the mechanics, they know the tricks, but they still chase the feeling of witnessing something unplanned, something genuine, something that could not have been scripted. Vince gave them that template, sometimes intentionally through brilliant storytelling, sometimes accidentally through genuine crisis. In the end, these 5 moments tell one cohesive story, the story of a man who demanded absolute control, who built a billion-pound empire on that obsessive need for dominance, who turned every crisis into profit and every setback into opportunity, but who also paid an enormous price for that control. The price was emotional. The price was physical. The price was moral. And by 2020, the price was written clearly on his face for everyone to see. Vince McMahon McMahon built the most successful wrestling company in history. He revolutionized sports entertainment. He changed the entire industry forever. He created immortal characters and unforgettable moments. He built a legacy that will outlive him, but he also created a persona that became his prison. And when that prison finally cracked open, the world saw what was inside: a man broken by pressure, overwhelmed by emotion, undeniably human. That is when Vince McMahon truly lost it. That is when WWE became completely real. And that is the uncomfortable truth behind the empire. The greatest showman in wrestling history was ultimately just a man. A complicated, ruthless, brilliant, damaged man who could control everything except himself.